In the vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy, humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars. For centuries, they had gazed up at the night sky, wondering if they were alone in the universe. Little did they know that their questions would soon be answered in the most unexpected way. It all began on a seemingly ordinary day when a strange signal was detected by Earth's most advanced radio telescopes. The signal was unlike anything ever recorded, and it seemed to be coming from a distant star system. The news of the discovery spread like wildfire, and the entire world held its breath in anticipation. As the brightest minds on Earth worked tirelessly to decipher the message, they realized that it was an invitation from an alien civilization known as the Galactic Council. The Council, it seemed, was a group of advanced species from across the galaxy who had banded together to promote peace and cooperation among the stars. The invitation was a historic moment for humanity. It was a chance to take their place among the galactic community, to learn from advanced civilizations, and to share their own knowledge and culture. The leaders of Earth quickly assembled a team of diplomats, scientists, and military personnel to represent humanity in this new frontier. As the human delegation prepared for their journey, they couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. They were about to embark on the greatest adventure in human history, but they also knew that they were venturing into the unknown. They had no idea what to expect from the alien civilizations they were about to meet. When the day of the meeting finally arrived, the human delegation boarded their spacecraft and set out for the coordinates provided by the Galactic Council. As they approached the designated meeting place, they were awestruck by the sight before them. Dozens of alien ships of various sizes and shapes were gathered in a massive formation, each one representing a different species from across the galaxy. As the human ship docked with the Galactic Council's massive space station, the delegation was greeted by a group of alien diplomats. The aliens were a diverse bunch, with some resembling humans while others were utterly bizarre in appearance. Some had multiple limbs and eyes, while others seemed to be made entirely of energy. Despite their differences, the alien diplomats were polite and welcoming to the human delegation. They gave them a tour of the space station, showing off the advanced technology and cultural artifacts from across the galaxy. The humans were amazed by everything they saw, from the exotic plants and animals to the mind-bending works of art that defied all human understanding. However, as the tour went on, the human delegation began to notice something strange. The alien diplomats seemed to be treating them with a kind of condescending attitude, as if they were children who had stumbled into an adult conversation. They would often make subtle jokes at humanity's expense, mocking their primitive technology and lack of galactic knowledge. At first, the humans tried to brush off these comments as mere cultural misunderstandings. They were, after all, the new kids on the block, and they had a lot to learn. But as the meeting wore on, it became clear that the Galactic Council didn't see humanity as equals, but rather as a primitive and backward species that had no business being among the stars. The human delegation tried to argue their case, pointing out the many achievements of human civilization, from the great works of art and literature to the scientific breakthroughs that had allowed them to reach the stars. But the alien diplomats simply smiled and nodded, as if humoring a child who was trying to impress them. As the meeting came to a close, the human delegation left feeling frustrated and angry. They had come to the Galactic Council with hopes of forging new alliances and learning from advanced civilizations, but instead they had been treated like second-class citizens. They realized that if humanity was ever going to earn the respect of the galactic community, they would have to prove themselves in ways that the aliens could not ignore. And so, as the human delegation returned to Earth, they carried with them a new sense of purpose. They had seen the vast wonders of the galaxy, but they had also seen the condescension and prejudice that lurked beneath the surface. They knew that humanity would have to work harder and faster than ever before to catch up to the other species, to prove that they were not just a primitive backwater, but a force to be reckoned with. The underestimated underdogs had taken their first steps into the galactic community, but their journey was far from over. They had a long and difficult road ahead of them, but they were determined to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. And so, with a fire in their hearts and a dream in their minds, they set out to change the course of history forever. The human delegation returned to the Galactic Council, determined to prove their worth and earn the respect of the other species. They had spent months preparing for this moment, studying the customs and technologies of the alien civilizations and developing new innovations of their own. As they entered the council chamber, they were greeted by a sea of alien faces, each one more strange and exotic than the last. The human representatives took their seats at the table, ready to present their case to the council. But as soon as they began to speak, they were met with a chorus of laughter and jeers from the alien diplomats. The council members mocked humanity's primitive technology, their lack of galactic knowledge, and even their physical appearance. "Look at these hairless apes," one of the council members said, pointing at the human delegation. "They think they can play with the big boys now." Another council member chimed in, "I've seen more advanced civilizations in my toilet bowl." The human delegation tried to maintain their composure, but it was clear that they were struggling to keep their anger in check. They had come here to forge alliances and learn from the other species, but instead they were being treated like a joke. As the mockery continued, one of the human representatives finally stood up and addressed the council. "Enough," she shouted, her voice echoing through the chamber. "We may be new to the galactic community, but we are not primitive. We have achieved great things on our own world, and we have much to offer the rest of the galaxy." The council chamber fell silent for a moment, surprised by the humans' outburst. But then, one of the alien diplomats began to clap slowly, a condescending smirk on his face. "Well, well, well," he said. "It seems the little monkeys have some bite to them after all. But let me remind you of something, human. You are here at the invitation of the Galactic Council. We are the ones who decide whether your species is worthy of joining our ranks. And so far, you have done little to impress us." The human delegation bristled at the insult, but they knew that they couldn't afford to lose their temper. They had to remain calm and focused if they were going to win over the council. Over the next few hours, the human representatives presented their case to the council. They showcased their advanced technologies, their cultural achievements, and their plans for the future. They spoke passionately about their desire to learn from the other species and contribute to the greater good of the galaxy. But no matter what they said, the council members remained unimpressed. They continued to mock and belittle humanity, dismissing their accomplishments as trivial and unimportant. As the meeting drew to a close, the human delegation left the council chamber feeling frustrated and demoralized. They had given it their all, but it seemed that nothing they said or did could change the minds of the alien diplomats. But as they walked back to their ship, one of the human representatives had an idea. "We need to show them what we're really made of," she said. "We need to prove to them that we're not just some primitive backwater, but a force to be reckoned with." The others nodded in agreement, and they began to formulate a plan. They would return to Earth and redouble their efforts, pushing their technologies and innovations to the limit. They would forge new alliances with other species, and they would build a military force that could rival any in the galaxy. And when the time was right, they would return to the Galactic Council and show them the true power and potential of humanity. They would not be mocked or belittled any longer, but instead, they would take their rightful place among the stars. As the human ship left the Council space station and set a course for Earth, the delegation knew that they had a long and difficult road ahead of them, but they also knew that they had the strength, the determination, and the will to succeed. The Council's mockery had only served to fuel their fire, and now they were ready to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The underestimated underdogs were about to become the rising stars, and nothing in the universe could stop them now. Following the disastrous meeting with the Galactic Council, the human delegation returned to Earth with a renewed sense of purpose. They were determined to prove to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated, and they set about doing just that. The first step was to accelerate humanity's technological development. The world's greatest scientists and engineers were brought together to work on new projects, from advanced propulsion systems to powerful new weapons. They worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of what was possible and creating technologies that would have seemed like science fiction just a few years before. At the same time, humanity began to reach out to other species in the galaxy, seeking to forge new alliances and partnerships. They found that not all species were as dismissive of humanity as the Galactic Council had been, and soon they had established trade agreements and diplomatic ties with several key planets. One of these planets was home to a species known as the Zorgans, who were renowned throughout the galaxy for their advanced medical technologies. The humans and the Zorgans quickly formed a close partnership, with the Zorgans sharing their knowledge of biology and medicine in exchange for access to human technology. Another key ally was the Krellians, a warrior race that had long been at odds with the Galactic Council. The Krellians saw in humanity a kindred spirit, a species that had been underestimated and mocked by the Council just as they had been. They offered to train human soldiers in their advanced combat techniques, and soon, human warriors were among the most feared in the galaxy. As humanity's power and influence grew, the Galactic Council began to take notice. They had dismissed humanity as a primitive backwater, but now they were starting to see them as a potential threat. They sent spies to Earth to gather intelligence on human activities, and they began to plot ways to undermine humanity's growing alliances. But humanity was not about to be intimidated. They continued to push forward, developing new technologies and forging new alliances at a rapid pace. They even began to establish colonies on other planets, claiming new territories and resources for themselves. The Galactic Council was shocked by humanity's rapid rise, and they began to fear that they had made a grave mistake in underestimating them. They called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation, but by then, it was already too late. Humanity had become a force to be reckoned with, and they were not about to be stopped. They had advanced military technology, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, armed with devastating weapons, unbreakable armor, and the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to be beaten. As humanity's power grew, so too did their confidence. They began to challenge the Galactic Council directly, questioning their authority and demanding a seat at the table. The Council, once so dismissive of humanity, now found themselves struggling to keep up. And then, the unthinkable happened. A small skirmish broke out between human and Council forces on a distant planet, and suddenly, the galaxy was plunged into war. The Council had vastly underestimated humanity's strength, and they quickly found themselves on the defensive. At first, the Council's superior numbers and technology seemed to give them the advantage. But humanity's rapid rise had not been limited to just technology and alliances. They had also developed new tactics and strategies that caught the Council off guard. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Council had ever seen, and their weapons were devastating. Human soldiers fought with a ferocity and determination that the Council's forces could not match, and soon, the tide of the war began to turn. As news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy, other species began to rally to their cause. The Krellians and the Zorgans were the first to join the fight. But soon, other species followed suit. The Galactic Council found themselves facing not just humanity, but a growing coalition of species that had been inspired by humanity's rapid rise. The war raged on for years, with humanity and their allies slowly but surely gaining ground. The Galactic Council grew increasingly desperate, but no matter what they tried, they could not stop humanity's advance. And so, the once mocked and underestimated humans found themselves on the brink of victory, poised to take their place as one of the most powerful and influential species in the galaxy. The rapid rise had been a success, beyond anyone's wildest dreams, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The tensions between humanity and the Galactic Council had been simmering for years, but it was a small incident on a remote planet that finally ignited the flames of war. A human trade ship, carrying valuable resources and technology, was passing through a system controlled by the Council when it was suddenly attacked by a Council patrol. The human ship was badly damaged, and many of its crew were killed or injured. News of the attack spread quickly, and humanity was outraged. They demanded justice for their fallen comrades and compensation for their losses, but the Council refused to accept responsibility. Instead, they claimed that the human ship had been trespassing in their territory and that the attack had been justified. Humanity was not about to accept this explanation, and they began to mobilize their forces for war. They called on their allies, the Krellians and the Zorgans, to join them in the fight, and soon a massive fleet of human and allied ships was assembled. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, was not about to back down. They had underestimated humanity before, but they were not about to make the same mistake again. They gathered their own forces, calling on their member species to contribute ships and soldiers to the cause. The stage was set for a massive confrontation, and both sides knew that the stakes could not be higher. If humanity won, they would establish themselves as a major power in the galaxy, while if the Council emerged victorious, they would cement their dominance once and for all. The first battles of the war were fierce and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy losses. The Council's ships were larger and more heavily armed, but humanity's ships were faster and more maneuverable. Human tactics were unconventional and unpredictable, catching the Council's forces off guard time and time again. But despite their early successes, humanity knew that they were still at a disadvantage. The Council's resources were vast, and they could afford to lose ships and soldiers in a way that humanity could not. If the war dragged on too long, humanity risked being ground down by attrition. Desperate for a breakthrough, humanity's scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to develop new weapons and technologies that could turn the tide of the war. They created new types of ships, equipped with advanced shields and weapon systems, and they developed new tactics that could exploit the Council's weaknesses. One of the most significant developments was a new type of missile designed specifically to target the Council's largest and most powerful ships. The missile was equipped with a miniaturized wormhole generator, which allowed it to bypass the Council's defenses and strike directly at the heart of their ships. The first time the missile was used in battle, it was a resounding success. A human ship, outnumbered and outgunned by a Council battleship, managed to fire off a single missile before being destroyed. The missile struck the Council ship dead center, and in an instant, the entire ship was consumed by a miniature black hole. News of the weapon's effectiveness spread quickly, and soon, every human ship was equipped with the new missiles. The Council's forces, once so confident in their superiority, now found themselves on the defensive, struggling to protect their ships from the devastating new weapon. But even with their new advantages, humanity knew that the war was far from over. The Council's forces were still vast, and they were not about to give up easily. They began to adapt their own tactics, developing new countermeasures against the human missiles and launching devastating counterattacks of their own. As the war dragged on, both sides suffered heavy losses, and the toll on both human and alien life was staggering. But neither side was willing to back down, knowing that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. For humanity, the war had become more than just a fight for survival. It had become a fight for their very identity. They had been mocked and underestimated by the Council for too long, and now they were determined to prove their worth once and for all. And so, even as the losses mounted, and the odds seemed increasingly stacked against them, humanity pressed on, driven by a fierce determination to emerge victorious no matter the cost. The spark of war had been lit, and now, the galaxy would burn until only one side remained standing. The war between humanity and the Galactic Council had been raging for years, with no end in sight. Both sides had suffered heavy losses, and the toll on both human and alien life had been staggering. But even as the conflict dragged on, humanity refused to give up. They had been fighting an uphill battle from the start, outmatched and outgunned by the Council's superior technology and resources. But they had managed to hold their own through sheer determination and ingenuity, developing new weapons and tactics that could exploit the Council's weaknesses. Now, as the war entered its 5th year, humanity was about to unleash its most daring plan yet. They had identified a key weakness in the Council's defenses, a series of heavily fortified planets that served as the backbone of their military infrastructure. If humanity could take out these planets, they would deal a crippling blow to the Council's ability to wage war. But attacking them directly would be suicide. The Council's defenses were too strong, and their fleets too numerous. Instead, humanity came up with a bold plan. They would launch a series of surprise attacks on key Council member planets, targeting their industrial and economic centers. The goal was to draw the Council's attention away from their heavily defended planets, leaving them vulnerable to a surprise attack. The plan was risky, but humanity's leaders knew that they had no choice. They gathered their forces and launched their attacks, striking at the heart of the Council's member species. The attacks were devastating, catching the Council completely off guard. Human ships and soldiers descended on the targeted planets like a swarm of locusts, destroying factories, power plants, and other key infrastructure. The Council's member species were thrown into chaos, their economies and militaries crippled by the sudden attacks. They called on the Council for help, but the Council's forces were stretched thin, struggling to defend against the human onslaught. As the attacks continued, humanity's allies, the Krellians and the Zorgans, launched their own offensives, striking at key Council targets and drawing even more of their forces away from the heavily defended planets. For a moment, it seemed as though humanity might actually pull off their daring plan. But then, disaster struck. One of the Council's member species, a race of insectoid warriors known as the Xanthians, launched a devastating counterattack against humanity's forces. The Xanthians had been one of the Council's most powerful allies, and their sudden entry into the war caught humanity completely off guard. The Xanthian fleet tore through humanity's defenses like a hot knife through butter, destroying ships and killing soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Humanity's allies, already stretched thin by their own offensives, were unable to provide much assistance. For a moment, it seemed as though all was lost. Humanity's forces were in full retreat, their bold plan in tatters. The Council's forces, sensing victory, pressed their advantage, pushing humanity back on all fronts. But even in their darkest hour, humanity refused to give up. They rallied their remaining forces and launched a desperate counterattack, throwing everything they had at the Xanthian fleet. The battle was fierce and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But in the end, humanity's determination and ingenuity won out. They managed to exploit a weakness in the Xanthian ships, using their own weapons against them. The Xanthian fleet was decimated, their ships destroyed or crippled beyond repair. The Council's forces, deprived of one of their most powerful allies, began to falter. Seizing the moment, humanity launched a renewed offensive against the Council's heavily defended planets. This time, they were not alone. Their allies, the Krellians and the Zorgans, joined the fight, lending their own ships and soldiers to the cause. The battle was long and brutal, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. But in the end, humanity and their allies emerged victorious. The Council's defenses were shattered, their fleets scattered to the winds. As news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy, other species began to rally to humanity's cause. The Council's grip on power was slipping, and many saw humanity as the rising power in the galaxy. The turning tide had finally come, and humanity was poised to take their place as one of the most powerful and influential species in the galaxy. But even as they savored their victory, they knew that the war was far from over. The Council would not go down without a fight, and humanity would need all of their strength and determination to emerge victorious in the end. The Galactic Council was in shambles. Their once mighty fleets had been decimated, their defenses shattered by humanity's relentless onslaught. But even as they teetered on the brink of defeat, they refused to surrender. Instead, they hatched a desperate plan. They would lure humanity into a trap, drawing them into a final, decisive battle. they would throw everything they had at humanity in one last, desperate attempt to turn the tide of the war. The trap was set on a small, uninhabited planet on the edge of Council space. The Council's remaining forces gathered there, waiting for humanity to take the bait. Humanity, flush with victory and confident in their newfound power, took the bait. They sent a massive fleet to the planet, led by their most skilled and experienced commanders. But as they approached the planet, they realized too late that they had been deceived. The Council's forces were not the broken remnants of a defeated enemy, but a carefully prepared ambush. The Council's ships emerged from hiding, surrounding humanity's fleet on all sides. They opened fire, catching humanity completely off guard. The battle was fierce and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Humanity's ships were powerful and well-armed, but they were outnumbered and outflanked by the Council's forces. As the battle raged on, humanity's commanders realized that they had been outmaneuvered. The Council's trap had been carefully laid, and they had fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. But even as the situation looked increasingly grim, humanity refused to give up. They fought on with grim determination, their ships and soldiers throwing themselves into the fray with reckless abandon. One of humanity's most powerful weapons, the miniaturized wormhole generator missiles, proved to be a double-edged sword. The Council had developed countermeasures against the missiles, rendering them all but useless. As the battle dragged on, humanity's forces began to take heavy casualties. Ships were destroyed left and right, and soldiers fell by the thousands. But even as the situation looked increasingly hopeless, humanity's commanders refused to give the order to retreat. They knew that if they fled now, the Council would only come after them again, stronger and more determined than ever. Instead, they made a fateful decision. They would make their final stand here, on this small, uninhabited planet. They would fight to the last ship and the last soldier, and they would make the Council pay dearly for every inch of ground they took. The battle raged on for hours, then days. Humanity's forces fought with a ferocity and determination that the Council had never seen before. They threw themselves into the fray with reckless abandon, determined to take as many of the enemy with them as they could. As the battle entered its final stages, humanity's commanders made one last, desperate gamble. They ordered their remaining ships to launch a full-scale assault on the Council's flagship, the massive dreadnought that served as the nerve center of their fleet. The assault was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. But humanity's soldiers and pilots did not hesitate. They threw themselves at the flagship with everything they had, determined to take it down no matter the cost. The battle was fierce and bloody, with humanity's ships being destroyed left and right. But even as they fell, they managed to inflict heavy damage on the Council's flagship. In the end, it was a single, heavily damaged human ship that dealt the final blow. Its pilot, a young woman named Alara, managed to ram her ship directly into the flagship's main reactor core. The resulting explosion was massive, engulfing the flagship in a blinding flash of light. When the smoke cleared, the flagship was gone, reduced to nothing more than a cloud of debris. With their flagship destroyed and their forces in disarray, the Council's will to fight finally broke. They surrendered unconditionally, putting an end to the war that had raged across the galaxy for so long. Humanity had emerged victorious, but at a terrible cost. Millions of lives had been lost, and countless worlds had been devastated by the fighting. But even as they mourned their losses, humanity knew that they had achieved something incredible. They had taken on the most powerful force in the galaxy and emerged victorious, cementing their place as one of the most powerful and influential species in the universe. The final stand had been a testament to humanity's courage, determination, and indomitable spirit. And as they looked to the future, they knew that they would face many more challenges and obstacles along the way. But they also knew that they would face them together, united in their common cause, and determined to build a better future for all. In the aftermath of humanity's stunning victory over the Galactic Council, a new order began to take shape across the galaxy. With the Council's power broken and its member species in disarray, humanity seized the opportunity to establish itself as the dominant force in the galaxy. The first step was to consolidate their power and secure their position. Humanity and their allies, the Krellians and the Zorgans, formed a new alliance, the Interstellar Federation. The Federation was to be a beacon of hope and stability in a galaxy that had been ravaged by war and conflict for so long. Under the leadership of the Federation, humanity began to reach out to other species across the galaxy, offering them a chance to join the new order. Many were hesitant at first, wary of humanity's intentions and fearful of the Council's retribution. But as word of humanity's victory spread, more and more species began to rally to their cause. They saw in humanity a chance for a better future, a future free from the tyranny and oppression of the Council. As the Federation grew in size and strength, they began to establish new trade routes and diplomatic ties across the galaxy. They worked to rebuild the worlds that had been devastated by the war, offering aid and assistance to those in need. But even as humanity worked to build a new, more peaceful galaxy, they knew that the Council was not yet defeated. Many of its member species still clung to power, and they were determined to resist the Federation's efforts at every turn. To counter this threat, humanity began to build up their military might once again. They constructed new ships and weapons, even more powerful and advanced than before. They trained new generations of soldiers and pilots, ready to defend the Federation against any threat. As the years passed, humanity's influence continued to grow. They established new colonies on distant worlds, and their ships became a common sight across the galaxy. But even as they reveled in their newfound power and prosperity, humanity never forgot the lessons of the past. They knew that the galaxy was a dangerous and unpredictable place, and that they could never let their guard down. They also knew that true peace and stability could never be achieved through force alone. They worked tirelessly to build bridges between species, to foster understanding and cooperation between all the peoples of the galaxy. As the Federation continued to grow and evolve, humanity began to take on a new role in the galaxy. They became known as the guardians of peace and justice, the defenders of the weak and the oppressed. They intervened in conflicts across the galaxy, using their military might to protect innocent lives and to bring an end to tyranny and oppression wherever they found it. But even as they fought to bring peace to the galaxy, humanity never lost sight of their ultimate goal: to create a galaxy where all species could live together in harmony, free from the fear of war and conflict. To this end, they worked to establish a new galactic council, one that would be based on the principles of democracy, equality, and justice. The new council would be a forum where all species could come together to discuss their differences and to work towards common goals. The establishment of the new council was not without its challenges. Many species were still wary of humanity's intentions, and some even sought to undermine the Federation's efforts. But humanity persevered, and in the end, the new Galactic Council was born. It was a momentous occasion, a turning point in the history of the galaxy. As humanity took its place at the head of the Council, they knew that they had finally achieved what they had set out to do so long ago. They had proven themselves to be more than just a primitive backwater species. They had shown the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with, a species that could lead the way towards a better future for all. And as they looked out across the stars, humanity knew that their journey was far from over. There would be new challenges and new threats to face in the years to come. But they also knew that they would face them together, united in their determination to build a galaxy that was free, just, and prosperous for all. The new galactic order had been born, and humanity would be at the forefront, leading the way towards a brighter tomorrow. Decades had passed since humanity's historic victory over the Galactic Council, and the galaxy had undergone a profound transformation. Under the leadership of the Interstellar Federation and the new Galactic Council, a new era of peace, prosperity, and cooperation had dawned. Humanity, once the underdogs of the galaxy, had emerged as one of its most powerful and respected species. Their leadership and vision had been instrumental in shaping the new galactic order, and their legacy would be remembered for generations to come. But even as humanity basked in the glow of their success, they never forgot the long and difficult road that had led them to this point. They remembered the sacrifices that had been made, the lives that had been lost, and the challenges that had been overcome. They remembered the early days of their journey, when they had first ventured out into the stars, full of hope and wonder. They remembered their first contact with alien civilizations and the sense of awe and excitement that had filled them. They remembered the dark days of the war, when they had been pushed to the brink of extinction by the overwhelming might of the Galactic Council. They remembered the fear and desperation that had gripped them, and the grim determination that had driven them forward. And they remembered the heroes who had emerged during those dark times, the brave men and women who had risked everything to defend humanity and its allies. Names like Admiral Jenna Sheridan, Captain Marcus Kincaid, and Lieutenant Alara Vallon had become the stuff of legend, their deeds celebrated in song and story across the galaxy. But even as humanity honored its past, it also looked to the future. The Federation had brought peace and stability to the galaxy, but there was still much work to be done. New challenges and new threats would arise, and humanity would need to be ready to face them. To this end, humanity continued to invest in its military and its scientific research. They developed new technologies and new weapons, always striving to stay one step ahead of any potential adversaries. But they also knew that true security could never be achieved through military might alone. They worked tirelessly to build bridges between species, to foster understanding and cooperation between all the peoples of the galaxy. They established new trade routes and cultural exchange programs, encouraging the free flow of ideas and resources between worlds. They worked to promote education and scientific advancement, knowing that knowledge and understanding were the keys to a brighter future. As the years passed, humanity's influence continued to grow. They became known as the wise elders of the galaxy, the species that had seen the worst of what the universe had to offer and had emerged stronger and wiser for it. And as new generations came of age, they looked to humanity as an example of what was possible. They saw in humanity a species that had overcome incredible odds, that had fought for what it believed in and had emerged victorious. They saw in humanity a beacon of hope and inspiration, a reminder that no matter how dark the night may seem, there is always the promise of a new dawn. And so, as humanity looked back on its long and storied history, it knew that its legacy would endure long after its individual members had passed into memory. They had left an indelible mark on the galaxy, and their achievements would be celebrated for generations to come. But even as they took pride in their accomplishments, humanity never lost sight of what truly mattered. They knew that their greatest strength lay not in their weapons or their technology, but in their unity and their compassion. They knew that as long as they stood together, as long as they fought for what was right and just, there was no challenge they could not overcome, no obstacle they could not surmount. And so, as humanity looked to the future, it did so with hope and determination, secure in the knowledge that its legacy would endure and that its greatest triumphs were still to come. The legacy of the victors was a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, to the courage and sacrifice of all those who had fought and died for the cause of freedom and justice. And as long as that spirit endured, as long as humanity continued to strive for a better tomorrow, there was no limit to what they could achieve.